The day I turned 16, my stepmother Vera handed me a trash bag filled with my clothes and pushed me out the door. Not a suitcase, not even a backpack, a black garbage bag, like I was waste being taken out. Your dead father left us nothing but debt because of you, she spat, her breath heavy with the menthol cigarettes she smoked every morning. $500,000 in medical bills just to keep you alive as a baby. You ruined this family before you could even walk. I stood on that porch in Clearwater, Kansas, holding the bag, while my stepbrother Damon watched from the window, smirking. My stepsister Bridget wouldn't even meet my eye. The woman who'd raised me since I was 3 looked at me with such disgust. You'd think I'd done something terrible, not simply existed. 20 years later, I was mopping floors at Second Chance's halfway house in Denver, when Ruth, my supervisor, knocked on the supply closet door. Jonah, there's a lawyer from New York on the line. Says he's been trying to reach you for 3 years. Something about an inheritance. I almost laughed. Inheritance? From who? With what money? My family had made it clear I was worth less than nothing. But I took the call anyway, expecting some scam about a prince or a long-lost relative needing my bank account. Mr. Jonah Reeves. The voice was professional, older, with that Manhattan accent that makes everything sound expensive. My name is Harrison Caldwell, from Caldwell Associates. I represent the estate of Constance Atticus Reeves. I've never heard of her. Wrong person. Please don't hang up. You are the son of William Atticus Reeves, correct? My hand froze on the receiver. Nobody knew my father's middle name. It wasn't on his death certificate or obituary. Only on my original birth certificate I'd seen once, when replacing my ID at 25. Atticus. A strange, distinctive name I'd never forgotten. How do you know that name? Because Constance Atticus Reeves was your grandmother, your father's mother, and she left you everything. My father was an orphan. He didn't have a mother. Your father left home at 18 and never looked back, but Constance never stopped searching for him. When she learned what happened to you, she changed her entire will. Mr. Reeves, you inherited approximately $89 million. The mop handle slipped from my hand and hit the floor. $89 million. The words didn't make sense. I'd spent 20 years sleeping under bridges, eating from dumpsters, believing I was so worthless. My own family couldn't afford to keep me. I believed my existence was a debt that couldn't be repaid. But there's more, Caldwell continued, his voice careful, like he didn't want to scare me. Your stepmother lied to you. Your father didn't die in debt. He owned 3 hardware stores. He had life insurance investment. Your medical bills were fully covered by insurance and a trust from your maternal grandparents. You never cost your family a single penny. The room started spinning. I grabbed the door frame to stay upright. That's impossible. Vera said the bills were $500,000. She showed me the notices. She said collectors called every day. Mrs. Hutchkins liquidated about $2 million in assets after your father's death. She told the probate court she was the sole beneficiary. Then she created an elaborate story about medical debt to justify what she'd done. Mr. Reeves, you were never a burden. You were a victim of theft and fraud. $2 million. The number echoed in my head. $2 million that should have been mine, for college, for a home, for a life. Instead, I got a garbage bag, and 20 years of believing I was worthless. We need to meet in person, Caldwell said. There are documents to sign. More importantly, there's a letter from your grandmother. She wanted me to read it to you personally, to make sure you understood that you were loved, that you were always loved, even when it felt like the whole world had thrown you away. I thought about 16-year-old me, standing on that porch, convinced I destroyed my family just by being born. I thought about all the nights I lay awake, wondering what was so wrong with me. My own stepmother couldn't stand to look at me. I thought about every job I'd worked, every dollar I'd saved, trying to prove I wasn't a burden. And now this lawyer was telling me it was all a lie. Every word of it. My name is Jonah Reeves. At 16, I was thrown away like garbage by a woman who stole my inheritance and blamed me for it. At 36, I discovered my worth was never measured in dollars, but in the love of a father who died protecting me. and a grandmother who spent her last years searching for me. This is the story of how I learned that sometimes the people who throw us away are actually setting us free to discover who we really are. And who I really am, it turns out, is nobody's garbage. Proof you can't put a price on a human soul. My name is Jonah Reeves. Until 3 months ago, I believed I was the reason my family lived in poverty. Every morning I wake up in my studio apartment in Denver, a simple place with creaking floors and windows that don't close properly. But it's mine. After 20 years of sleeping wherever I could, having my own key still feels like a miracle. I work at Second Chance's halfway house, helping others who've lived on the streets find their way back to something like normal life. Most days I'm good at my job, because I know what it's like to believe you're beyond saving. Growing up in Clearwater, Kansas, our house was a constant reminder of everything we didn't have. The roof leaked every time it rained, the furnace broke every winter, and we huddled around second-hand space heaters. The kitchen table had one short leg we propped up with a 1998 phone book. Everything was broken, patched, or borrowed. And according to Vera, all of it was my fault. Your birth nearly killed you, she'd say at dinner, always giving me the smallest portion. Complications during delivery. Emergency surgery. 3 months in the NICU. Your father had to sell his business, mortgage the house, borrow from everyone we knew. $500,000. Jonah, that's what saving your life cost this family. She had a way of saying my name that made it sound like a curse. Even now, 36 and 3 months into knowing the truth, I sometimes hear her voice when someone says my name, that sharp edge of resentment cutting through 2 syllables. My father, William Reeves, died in a car accident when I was 3. The only memory I have of him isn't real, just a photograph Vera kept on the mantle. In it he's holding baby me in a hospital room, machines and wires in the background. He looks exhausted, but he's smiling like I'm the most precious thing in the world. Vera would point to that picture whenever she wanted to hurt me. Look how tired he was. Look what you put him through. He worked himself to death trying to pay those bills. Vera had married my father when I was 18 months old. She already had 2 children from her first marriage. Damon was 5 years older than me, built like a linebacker by 14, and never let me forget I was the reason he couldn't have the things other kids had. Mom says we could have had a pool, he'd tell me, shoving me into lockers. Could have gone to Disney World, could have had a lot of things if Dad hadn't wasted everything on keeping you alive. Bridget was 3 years older than me, quieter than Damon, but no less resentful. She had our father's gentle eyes, which made her coldness hurt more. I know it's not technically your fault, she told me once when I was 12 and she was 15. But every time Mom cries about money, every time I wear hand-me-downs, every time Damon talks about dropping out because we can't afford college, I think about that $500,000. What our lives could have been if you hadn't needed it. I learned to make myself small, invisible, unnecessary. I ate only when others had finished. I wore Damon's old clothes until they fell apart, held together with safety pins and hope. I didn't ask for school supplies, birthday presents, or new shoes, even when mine had holes that let in snow. At 14, I got a job washing dishes at Murphy's Diner, working after school and all weekend. I'd come home at midnight, reeking of grease and industrial soap, and hand my paycheck to Vera without keeping a penny. It's not even close to enough, she'd say, tucking the money into her purse. But at least you're trying to pay us back. Growing up believing you're a debt means you never feel like you deserve anything good. When teachers praised my work, I assumed they were just being nice. When a girl asked me to the winter dance, I said no because I couldn't afford a suit and didn't want to embarrass her. When Miss Murphy offered to promote me to server for better tips, I turned it down because I didn't think I deserved to move up. I existed in a constant state of apology. Sorry for breathing. Sorry for taking up space. Sorry for costing so much before I even knew what money was. That weight shaped everything about me, curved my spine, made me walk through the world like someone who'd stolen something precious and was waiting to be caught. The morning of my 16th birthday began with Vera banging on my bedroom door at 5:30. Get up. You think birthdays mean you get to sleep in? Breakfast doesn't make itself. I dragged myself out of bed, still in my dishwasher uniform, from Murphy's Diner, the January cold cutting through our drafty house. I could see my breath as I stumbled to the kitchen. I made scrambled eggs, toast, and coffee for everyone, the same breakfast I'd made since I was 12. Damon came down first, already in his varsity jacket, eating without acknowledging me. Bridget followed, complaining about having to wear the same dress she'd worn last week. Vera sat at the head of the table, smoking and reading collection notices. "Happy birthday to me," I muttered, washing their dishes. What was that? Vera's voice was sharp. "Nothing. Just talking to myself." "Good. Hurry or you'll miss the bus." I grabbed my backpack, held together with duct tape because the zipper had broken 2 years ago, and headed for the door. That's when Vera stood up, holding something behind her back. "Actually, Jonah, wait a minute." For one hopeful second, I thought she'd gotten me something for my birthday, maybe just a card or even a kind word. Instead, she pulled out a black garbage bag already full. "What's that?" I asked, though I already knew. "Your things. You're 16 now, legal age to work full-time in Kansas. Time for you to go." The words didn't make sense at first. Go where? I don't care where, just not here. "But this is my home. You're my mother." She laughed, harsh and bitter. "I'm not your mother. Your mother died giving birth to you, starting this whole mess. I'm just the one who married your father, thinking he owned 3 hardware stores, only to find out after he died that he'd sold everything, mortgaged everything, borrowed everything to pay for your medical bills. I'll quit school. I'll work more hours. I'll give you everything I earn. You already give me everything, and it's not enough. It will never be enough. Do you understand that, Jonah? You owe this family $500,000. At minimum wage, working every hour of your life, you'll never pay that back." Damon appeared in the doorway, grinning. "Mom's been planning this for months. We're moving to California next week. Aunt Patricia got Mom a job at her real estate company. Fresh start. No baggage." "I'm not baggage. I'm your brother." "Stepbrother," Damon corrected, "and not even that anymore." Bridget came down the stairs, but wouldn't look at me. "Mom, maybe we should wait until summer. Let him finish the school year at least." "We've waited 13 years, Vera snapped. 13 years of collection calls. 13 years of "we're sorry, your card has been declined." 13 years of watching other families take vacations and buy new cars while we scramble to keep the lights on. I'm done waiting. She shoved the garbage bag into my chest so hard I stumbled. "Your father chose you over this family. He looked at the bills, looked at us, and chose to destroy our future to save yours. Well, he's dead now, and I'm choosing us." "Please," I said, hating how small my voice sounded. "It's January. It's freezing outside. Where am I supposed to go?" "You should have thought about that before you cost us everything." She moved to close the door, but I put my hand out to stop it. "This is illegal. You can't just abandon a minor." "I'll call the police." "Go ahead. Tell them how we fed you, clothed you, housed you for 13 years while drowning in debt you created. Tell them about the collection agencies that call every day. Tell them about the liens on this house. See if they care about one ungrateful kid who won't leave when asked. I'll tell them you're lying about the debt. With what proof? I have medical bills and collection notices. Bankruptcy papers? What do you have?" "Nothing." "That's what I thought," she said. "Now get off my porch before I call the police myself and tell them you're trespassing." The door slammed in my face. I heard the deadbolt turn, then the chain lock slide into place. Through the window, I saw Damon high-five Vera. Bridget had gone upstairs. I stood on that porch for 3 hours, sure someone would open the door. Sure this was just Vera trying to scare me, teach me a lesson. But when the locksmith van pulled up and a man got out with a toolbox, I finally understood this was real. "You need to move, kid," the locksmith said, not unkindly. "I've got work to do." I picked up my garbage bag and walked away from the only home I'd ever known, my breath forming clouds in the freezing air, wearing a thin jacket and shoes with holes, carrying my life in a bag people use for trash. That first night behind Murphy's diner nearly killed me. The temperature dropped to 12 degrees. I wrapped myself in every piece of clothing from that garbage bag, but it wasn't enough. My fingers went numb first, then my toes, then that dangerous sleepy feeling that means your body is giving up. I kept moving, doing jumping jacks behind the dumpster, knowing if I stopped I might not start again. Mr. Murphy found me the next morning when he came to open at 5. Jesus Christ, Jonah, what the hell are you doing back here? My lips were too cold to form words. He dragged me inside, sat me next to the industrial oven, and made me drink hot coffee until I could feel my fingers. When I told him what happened, his face went through several emotions before settling on anger. That woman threw you out in January. You're 16. She said, I cost too much. The medical bills from when I was a baby. Mr. Murphy let me sleep in the storage room for a week, bringing me blankets from his house and leftover food from the kitchen. But then his wife found out, we can't harbor a runaway, Frank. We could lose everything. The state could shut us down. He needs to go to foster care or back home. I can't go back, I told them. And foster care means questions, court, maybe they send me back to Vera anyway. So I ran. I took my garbage bag and disappeared into the underbelly of Kansas, then Colorado, learning the geography of homelessness. Every city has its hidden spaces, where the thrown away gather, under bridges, where the concrete holds heat longer than you'd think, behind 24-hour laundromats, where the vents blow warm air, church doorways, where most priests won't call the cops if you're gone by morning. I learned how to find day labor at construction sites. No questions asked, if you worked hard and kept your head down. I learned which restaurants tossed perfectly good food and when. I learned to shower at truck stops, sleep in shifts to avoid being robbed, and never look too comfortable anywhere, because comfort makes you visible, and visible makes you vulnerable. The worst part wasn't the hunger, or the cold, or even the fear. It was how you slowly disappear when everyone looks through you like you don't exist. You start to wonder if maybe you don't. Maybe you really are garbage, like the bag Vera handed me. Maybe this is what you deserve for being so expensive to keep alive. At 19, I was arrested for vagrancy in Denver. The judge gave me a choice, jail or a program at St. Benedict's Mission. I chose the mission, thinking it was just another shelter. But Father Timothy, who ran it, saw something in me I'd forgot. You're smart, he said, after I helped fix their old computer. Why aren't you in school? School costs money, I told him. Everything costs money. I already cost too much. He made me tell the whole story. When I finished, he was quiet for a long time. Your stepmother was wrong, he said. Finally, the only thing you cost was love, and love is supposed to be free. Father Timothy helped me get my GED and pushed me into community college classes. By 25, I was living in the mission's transitional housing and had a real job. Steady warehouse work, not glamorous, but steady. After 9 years of not knowing where I'd sleep, steady was everything. I saved obsessively, terrified of ever needing anyone again. Even after I could afford my own place, I stayed another year at the mission, banking every penny. The others thought I was crazy. Why are you living here if you've got money, they'd ask. Because I need to prove something, I'd answer, though I couldn't say what. At 30, I applied at Second Chance's halfway house. Ruth, the director and a former nun, stared through any facade. Why do you want to work here? She asked. Because I understand what it's like to feel worthless. I want to help people remember they're not. She hired me as a janitor. I worked my way to intake coordinator and then to counselor, earning certification at night. Every person who arrived with a trash bag, I saw myself. Every teenager thrown out by their family reminded me of that 16-year-old on Vera's porch. I built a careful life, like someone assembling a house of cards in a windstorm. I dated sometimes, but I never let anyone close enough to ask about my family. When coworkers reminisced, I changed the subject. When clients asked how I could relate so well, I'd say, we all have our struggles, and leave it there. I never looked for Vera, Damon, or Bridget. What would be the point? They'd chosen, and I'd survive. Still, late at night in my small apartment, I wondered if they ever thought about me, if they ever wondered whether I'd lived or died after they turned those locks. 3 days after that call, I sat in Harrison Caldwell's Manhattan office, 40 floors above Park Avenue. The elevator ride cost more than my monthly rent, marble, mirrors, soft classical music. Caldwell's assistant offered coffee in a fragile cup. My warehouse hands felt suddenly too rough for that world. Caldwell himself was in his 70s, silver-haired, kind-eyed behind wire-rimmed glasses. His office looked like a set dark wood, leather books, a city view that made my stomach drop. He opened a thick folder and placed it between us. "Before we begin," he said, "what I'm about to tell you may be difficult to hear. Do you need a moment?" I'd been homeless for 20 years because my stepmother said I bankrupted the family. Whatever he had to say couldn't be worse than that. He nodded, then pulled out a photograph. My father at about 20, standing beside a severe-looking woman dripping in pearls and judgment, in front of a mansion. "This is your grandmother, Constance Atticus Reeves, and your father when he was 20. Caldwell explained the Atticus fortune, mining interests dating back to the 1890s, and that by the time my father was born, the family was worth roughly $300 million. My father, Vera had said, died broke. The photo said otherwise. He'd been raised with everything money could buy: private schools, yacht clubs, a trust that should have made him secure. But Constance controlled everything, including who he would marry. When he met my mother, Emma, at 18, he chose her. Emma was a server at a charity event. Constance forbade the relationship, so my father left, changed his name from Atticus Reeves to Reeves, took what he had in his personal account, and disappeared to Kansas with Emma. He gave up hundreds of millions for love. He never regretted it. In Kansas, he opened hardware stores and built a life. When my mother died in childbirth and I needed care, it was costly, but not the catastrophe Vera described. Caldwell showed bank statements, insurance records, and medical files. My maternal grandparents had set up a trust for my care. Insurance covered much of my NICU stay. The out-of-pocket cost was roughly $30,000, which my father paid off within a year. "$30,000, I said. Vera had said $500,000 and shown me bills she'd manufactured. After my father died, Vera accessed his papers, created false documents, probably destroyed the real ones. But hospital records and insurer archives told the truth. My father had actually owned 3 hardware stores, held life insurance policies totaling about $1 million, had investment accounts, and even a college fund for me. At his death, age 29, his estate totaled about $2 million. I was shaking. "What happened to it?" I asked. "He died without a will. Kansas law favored the surviving spouse. Vera liquidated the assets within 6 months. She sold the stores, cashed policies, emptied accounts, telling probate she needed the funds for medical debts and family expenses. No one questioned a grieving widow with young children. She stole $2 million, then threw me out for being expensive." Caldwell continued. "A week after liquidating the assets, Vera bought a $400,000 house in California in cash. She set up $50,000 college funds for Damon and Bridget and invested the rest. By the time she threw me out, that money had grown to nearly $3 million. I could hardly breathe. She had millions and gave me a garbage bag. But Vera didn't know my grandmother had been watching. Constance hired private investigators after my father's death, hoping to find me and reconnect. They reported Vera's lies, her treatment of me, and crucially, what happened on my 16th birthday." Caldwell produced a report. January 15, subject expelled from family home on 16th birthday. Belongings given in a garbage bag. Temperature 12, subject remained on porch, roughly 3 hours. Family changed locks. Subject last seen walking toward commercial district. Constance tried to find me, offered rewards, but I vanished. The guilt nearly destroyed her. She rewrote her will 3 years before she died. Everything to me: the Atticus fortune, properties, investments, mining rights, after taxes and charitable distributions. Approximately $89 million. Why me? I asked. She'd never met me. Caldwell explained she'd spent 40 years estranged from her son over money and control. When she learned how that money had been used to justify throwing me away, she couldn't bear it. Caldwell handed me a sealed envelope. I opened my grandmother's letter with trembling hands. Her handwriting was elegant but shaky. "My dear Jonah," she wrote, "I failed your father and by extension I failed you. My pride and need for control drove the only family I had away. When I learned what that woman did to you, how she used my son's death to enrich herself while casting you out like garbage, I knew I had to make it right. Your father called me after you were born. He said you were perfect. He wanted to reconcile and bring you to meet me. I refused. I was too proud. A week later he was dead. I cannot undo my mistakes, but I can ensure you never question your worth again. You were loved desperately by a father who would have given anything for you. You are not a burden, you never were. Use this fortune to heal, to help others as I know you have been doing, and to build the life you deserve. And perhaps forgive an old woman who learned too late." Constant. Sitting in that expensive office with an $89 million inheritance in my hands, I cried for the first time in 20 years, not for money, but for the truth. My father hadn't bankrupted himself saving me. He'd loved me. My grandmother had spent her last years trying to find me and make amends. I wasn't garbage. I had never been garbage. The first thing I did wasn't buy a mansion or a sports car. I doubled funding for Second Chance's halfway house and founded a program for homeless youth thrown out by their families. Atticus House, after my father's middle name that had unlocked the truth. I hired private investigators not for revenge but for answers. They found Vera in Malibu, living in a $4 million ocean view home. Damon was a Beverly Hills plastic surgeon. Bridget ran a boutique in Santa Monica. They'd built successful lives on my father's stolen money and the shame she manufactured. My lawyer listed options: fraud, theft, emotional distress, child abandonment. The evidence was strong. But Ruth, at the halfway house, said something that stopped me. They have to wake up every morning knowing what they did. That's a prison no court can impose. So I didn't sue. Instead, I sent each of them one photograph, me at the Hedekas house opening, surrounded by kids who'd been thrown away. My only line: "I know the truth now, and I forgive you." Bridget called within an hour, sobbing. "I swear I didn't know," she said. "Mom showed us bills. We thought we were poor because of the medical costs. I'm so sorry," she told me. She'd wondered why money appeared for her college and why they moved to California, but she never asked. Damon didn't reach out, though Bridget said he entered therapy after the letter. "He can't handle what he did to me," she said. "He became a plastic surgeon to fix outsides, because he can't fix his own insides." Vera never replied, but Bridget said she'd started having panic attacks. Terrified I'd expose her, she'd told Malibu friends she was a struggling widow. The truth would destroy that fiction. I chose not to expose her. Living with the truth, I decided, was punishment enough. Every luxury she enjoys is now marked by the memory of a 16-year-old boy begging not to be thrown away. The real inheritance wasn't the money, though the funds have allowed me to help hundreds of young people. The real inheritance was learning I was loved. My father didn't calculate costs. He loved me without conditions. My grandmother's redemption rebuilt my soul. Last week, a 16-year-old girl arrived at Atticus House with her things in a trash bag, thrown out for being pregnant. As I helped her into a real room with dignity and safety, she asked, "Why do you care? You don't even know me." I thought of my father and grandmother, and 20 years of believing I was worthless. I told her someone convinced me I was too expensive to love. It took me 20 years to learn they were wrong. You're not too expensive, too difficult, or too much. You're exactly enough. Exactly as you are. This room is not charity. It's justice. It's what you deserve, simply for being human. She started to cry, and I remembered being 16 and thrown away, and also what it felt like to learn the truth, that love doesn't keep receipts, that worth isn't measured in dollars, and that sometimes the people who throw us away free us to find families who choose us. My name is Jonah Reeves. I am my father's son, my grandmother's legacy, and nobody's burden. At 16, I was handed a garbage bag and told I was worthless. At 36, I learned I was worth more than money could measure, not because of the inheritance, but because I survived long enough to learn the truth. Every thrown person is priceless. The $89 million helps build programs and change lives, but the deeper gift was the truth that I was loved. Vera stole my inheritance, but she couldn't steal what really mattered: my father's love, my grandmother's redemption, and my ability to turn 20 years of pain into purpose. Every young person at Atticus House is proof that being thrown away doesn't mean you're garbage. Sometimes it means you were too valuable for small people to recognize. That's the real inheritance. Not money, but truth. Truth can rebuild what lies destroy. It can turn a garbage bag into a symbol of survival and transform 2 decades of homelessness into a lifetime of giving others homes. It can teach a boy told he cost too much that the only thing worth spending on is love. Love, real love, never sends a bill. If this story touched you, if you've ever felt worthless or thrown away, share this video with someone who needs to hear they matter. Leave a comment about a time you discovered your own worth, despite what others said, and subscribe for more stories of people who turned their deepest pain into purpose. Remember, you're not too expensive to love. You're priceless. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise.